Steam engines and sorcery, firearms and fae folk. Very few games have attempted to walk the line between steampunk and fantasy, and the number that have succeeded can probably be counted on one hand.
Yet this is the exact premise of our subject today. New Arc Line, the debut RPG from Dream8 Games, introduces players to an exciting and dangerous new world. This is a new world in capital letters, an untamed realm full of fierce magics and undiscovered peoples that finds itself beset against a rising wave of industrialization. The newly established capital city, New Arc, stands as the crown jewel at the edge of this wild frontier, and the technologically advanced railway, known as the New Arc Line, serves as its lifeline.
New Arc Line recently chugged into the station on November 26th, making it the second train-themed early access RPG we've covered on the channel in the last year. I'm not complaining, but what's up with that? Is this a sign of the dawning era of the choo-choo-based RPG? As full disclosure, we want to point out that we did receive review keys for the game. Thanks to Dream8 for providing them.
As always, we thank our supporters that continually donate to keep our engines running. If you want to join the ever-growing band of champions, we'll talk about that some more near the end of the video. For now, it's time to juice up our jetpacks and strap on our steam boots to see what New Arc Line delivers in early access. My name is Boss Sauce.
And I'm Roland Kunz. And together, we are the two-headed hero. The conflicting forces of magic and technology form the central struggle in the realm of New Arc. In the distant past, powerful sorcerers ruled over the realm, shaping reality at their very whims, until a lowly human hero slipped in and somehow threw a proverbial monkey wrench in their magical works. This single act freed the will of mankind and ushered in a scientific renaissance, and technology progressed at unprecedented rates. The sorcerers didn't take this lying down, though. They wisely decided to consolidate their powers, biding their time and forming powerful cults that could channel the powers of gods and spirits throughout the world.
As the game opens, the forces of magic and science remain forever at odds. The presence of strong magical forces will cause tech to go haywire or stop working altogether, while oppressive technology likewise obliterates more passive magical beings. This isn't an entirely original premise. A very similar story was told within the 2001 cult classic RPG Arcanum, which we covered in depth a couple of years back. That video is pretty good though, go check it out. As you can see here, New Arc Line carries much of Arcanum's influence on its leather trench-coated sleeves.
Every good RPG needs a good character generator, and the one we find here in New Arc Line has plenty of backgrounds, stat builds, and character customization. Lots of base stats are weighted towards the various different kinds of magic and tech, making character gen an interesting and nuanced affair that requires some careful consideration.
There's also a random name generator that produces some pretty amusing and appropriately steampunky results. It's one of the few times I didn't bother to name my adventure clown something stupid, because I honestly don't think I could come up with a better moniker than Mazy Cog Twist for an adventure such as this. Even so, the early access feel starts to show its face here. There's a limited number of character options and classes to choose from. If you want to play as a devious little dwarf or a big clunky orc, you're out of luck until some updates roll out.
After creating either a diesel mechanic or a stick-shaking shaman, a small woodcut print-flavored cutscene dumps some world building, and we're plopped into the middle of a disaster film. Dragons fly through the skies, magic portals pop in and out of existence, and stacks of bodies and broken robots dot the landscape. And here's your character, taking in the sights, exposed butt cheeks flapping in the breeze.
New Arc Line is a mostly pointy-clicky affair similar to Baldur's Gate 3 or any number of CRPGs. Basically click around to move or interact with the world. It would be really nice if the WASD keys could free move the camera here, but the mouse wheel does a decent job instead, and the game course corrects its viewpoint fairly well on its own to keep your character center stage.
From here, your newly created hospital patient stumbles their way through a tutorial in search of their gear and presumably pantaloons. While bound by a frustratingly slow hobble speed due to your extensive wounds, a series of dialogues walk you through passive observation, dice rolling skill checks, looting, conversations, and trying to talk people down from a ledge.
I wish you would step back from that ledge, my friend.
Skill checks are handled in a similar way to another recent Steampunk and Sorcery game, Sovereign Syndicate. Dice are rolled with results in the range of 1 to 100. Rolling lower than your character's skill level is a success, and rolling higher is a failure. It's a simple enough system, and most checks are called out in dialogue so that any chance you decide to take is a somewhat informed one.
We'll get back to this later. As you drag your feet through the wreckage, one of the first things you might notice is how many of the NPCs are finger pointing, as if this massive catastrophe is somehow your fault. Psh, as if. Some even try to take a half-hearted swing at you. Curious indeed. But press on, removing a few minor obstacles until at last you close in on the rest of your meager possessions. You reach out towards your battered suitcase, eager to feel the comfort of threads and cloth touching your bare behind. Then, a building falls on your face.
Awakening from the blackness of a brick and mortar cascade, our adventurer finds themselves face to face with a judgmental windbag that has the audacity, sir, to read your own diary out loud at you.
Through this massive exposition dump, we find out that yes, you are indeed the architect of this magical techpocalypse. Your intentions were noble. Initially, your little steampunk set out to cure a deadly deforming disease called the Iron Plague that deforms the living and freezes them into horrific statues. To this end, you stole a powerful artifact, the unwoven filament, that helps enforce the carefully constructed rules of reality. As we just witnessed, pulling on this magical thread has caused all reality to come undone. We're thrust into a flashback, the first taste of real gameplay that you find in New Arcline.
Almost. It's months in the past, and your hero is fresh off the boat to the new world. A grumpy young cop holds you in the customs line, as they do. You might notice by his little speech that NPCs can react to character choices like species and occupation, and can lead to different dialogue choices further down the line. Unfortunately, these effects seem to be mostly window dressing during my time with New Arcline, and whether this aspect of gameplay will be expanded upon remains to be seen.
What he doesn't notice is that you have the unwoven filament stashed safely in your luggage. We get a golden opportunity to openly mock his authority, which unlocks the first character perk, and reveals an achievement-based perk system. Perks can also be purchased during level ups, but I really love the idea of hidden bonuses that can only be found making certain gameplay choices. It could add a ton of replayability to a game like this.
Now freed from the customs line, you wander around the port in an "are you my mommy" moment until you stumble into a bare-knuckle brawl in progress. The giant in the ring waves in recognition as he gets his nose mashed in by his opponent. Meet Mick Mortensen, your mashed potato-nosed smuggling contact, and the enforcer for a powerful local crime ring.
It's because I'm as gorgeous as a rose. Or at least I was, before I got this mashed potato nose.
Mick blames you for his loss, which honestly hardly seems fair considering he's the one that goofed up and found himself on the receiving end of a knockout uppercut. He places you on the hook for his gambling debt and refuses to take you to his boss until you pay it off for him. Know how this is a capitalist society? The very first quest puts you in debt slavery for $300.
Unlike the turn of the 20th century that the game emulates, it's relatively easy to get $300 from looting the loose luggage of other unfortunate travelers or beating the various carnival games around the boardwalk. Remember those good old days when you got to win $150 from a carnival game instead of spending $150 on a carnival game?
To get that bear. You gotta get that bear.
It's $150 worth of bear right there. With the right skills, you might even be able to fix the carny games in your favor, to take revenge for all the times you couldn't shoot a water pistol into a clown's mouth. That's good. You can also turn to character-specific skills like operating heavy machinery to loot precious cargo, or lifting the wallets off of passerby, which has its own special little pickpocketing minigame. Once Mick is freed from his obligation, he tags along and lets you in on the plan to get to the Harbor Slums, the industrial district near the port which holds the headquarters for Red Simon's crime ring. The first step? Get back your little yellow suitcase that carries the precious unwoven filament.
Nothing is ever that simple, though. A toddler-sized rat leaps out from the vast piles of luggage, giving our first taste of New Arcline's combat system. Battles are a turn-based and action-pointed affair, playing out similar to a tabletop game.
On the left, action points rule the available actions a character can take, such as attacks, spells, and skills. Characters have multiple basic attacks and special moves, which are mostly determined by the equipped weapon or readied spells. On the right, available reaction points can be used for chugging potions, throwing grenades, using special gear, or countering certain types of attacks. Actions and reactions are all limited by cooldowns, ammunition, or the number of relevant items on hand, which adds a little bit of strategy to the game's encounters.
The little white bar hovering over everyone's heads represents their armor and defenses, and this bar refills every round, kinda like a Halo shield.
Skull taken.
The green bar represents health, which does not refill during combat, but when that shiny victory flag waves at the end of a fight, all characters heal to full anyway.
I kind of like the idea of armor as a bar that refills.
I do too.
It's a different way to represent armor than simply either making it harder to hit a character, which is generally kind of boring because it makes it so that like misses do nothing, and then why did I even take that action? And then the other way to show armor is subtracting damage, which can also make your hits feel pointless. Like if it subtracts it all the way down to 0, I mean, that's a way to show like a very powerful enemy, but it also can feel bad if you just kind of built your guy wrong. That's a new thing that I actually appreciated.
I did think it was weird that all your guys heal to full at the end of a fight no matter what, though.
I think it's fine. I mean, it lets you balance a particular combat to itself, right? Like, you don't have to worry as much about what items or like what is the current state of the character's party. You can just worry about how powerful that party is, right?
It's an interesting decision. I don't know if it's the right one, but it's interesting.
This is where some of the cracks in the combat design begin to appear. There's a decent amount of encounters, but unlike other contemporary CRPGs, there are very few opportunities to talk your way out of a battle. And forget about stealth. As it stands now, there's no way to sneak past a fight. Positioning and elevation are basically moot points as well. Ambushes and crossfire tactics are out of the question, and cover mechanics are non-existent. On top of this, there's a few balance issues. But hey, if you're having trouble with a particular fight, strap on a pistol. Most of them come with a built-in win button.
Overall, this does make the combat design feel a bit simplistic and two-dimensional, especially in the early game where the stakes are usually lower. On the upside, enemy designs are extremely cool. You'll be battling vicious automatons, waterlogged walking corpses, acid-spitting fairies, and a wide variety of fey abominations, including magically mutated orphans.
The various teched-up bandits in the streets can pose a real danger, especially when they're slamming you with steam-powered hammers or pinning you down with sniper fire. Even the basic rat can be a threat early on, since they're the size of a toddler and hard to pin down. But just wait until you bump into
Alpha Rat,
a hairy monstrosity bristling with extra eyes and limbs that can increase its power and heal its wounds by consuming its smaller rat brethren.
Once the steam clears and the magic begins to dissipate, you'll have some time to pick through the leavings of your fallen foes. Like many similar CRPGs, New Arc Line features a good old-fashioned grid inventory as well as a traditional paper doll equipment screen, and looting the remains of your enemies is a great way to find some quick upgrades. Unfortunately, the inventory is a bit messy. Item sizes are super inconsistent, making the contents of your bag hard to read at a glance.
At one point, I had 3 crows in my inventory, each of which was as large as 9 bottles of wine. Those are real big birds. Those are like at least flamingos. 9 bottles of wine.
Maybe the bottles of wine are like an airplane bottle of wine. You might notice the glaring omission of any sort of auto-sort feature, hopefully something that will be addressed in the future. And unfortunately, looting is also hindered by the occasional unresponsiveness of mouse inputs. These issues mostly seem to pop up when trying to move items around and coincided with frame rate fluctuations in some of the larger areas. Little annoyances like these serve as a reminder of the game's early access status.
Corpse robbing might be profitable, but if you're looking to give your diesel mechanic or spellslinger even more of an edge, there are a couple of crafting systems on offer as well. Tech crafting is a straightforward affair. Select a recipe, push a button, and a jetpack falls out, provided you have the right materials. You can use this to craft grenades, ammunition, armor, and powerful weapons in the same way.
Spellcraft is a bit of a different beast. Spells can only be created using these mysterious tarot cards, which are found by pulling them from scrolls or siphoning them from magical rifts like this one. When certain cards are combined in this spell-crafting triangle here, they yield a variety of new spell effects. It's a pretty cool idea to be able to experiment with the various forms, elements, and modifiers at your disposal, and certain pieces of gear can also be enchanted in a similar fashion. Tarot cards can also be used to reroll and boost skill checks at certain points, but doing this uses up the card, so special considerations must be taken to weigh the risk and reward of using up these precious resources.
These tools are also complemented by the Bestiary, which unlocks descriptions and sketches of all the various beasts you encounter as you defeat them. Add in a decent map and a detailed quest log, and you won't find yourself lost for long within the game's winding corridors.
Whether you manage to bring down the child-sized rat yourself, or rely on Mick to take care of the problem, you'll soon be on your way to the second step in the plan. This requires more finesse and subterfuge, as you need to cozy up to a traveling theater show in order to get your little yellow suitcase out of the port and into the harbor slums of Tattertown.
Posing as a theater director's assistant comes with its own challenges, but on the upside, you get to spend some quality time with the magnificent Richard Maxwell Gracefield Paris III.
Oh, my vision is going blurry, and my legs, they're failing me. Oh, I'm going to pass out.
I don't know where they found the guy, but this voice actor delivers an absolutely delightful performance. You'll be spending the next leg of your quest doing a bunch of running around, fulfilling minor requests from the denizens of the promenade, and soaking in some of the excellent steampunk vibes.
Newark Line can be beautiful at times. Environments have loads of detail down to the reflections in the puddles and industrial-era grime on the cobblestones. Small pieces of set dressing make the city come alive, whether it's a Dixieland jazz band playing on the promenade, or magically infected mushrooms pulsing in the tunnels below the surface. And the devs clearly have a sense of humor, judging by the occasional environmental jokes. Wait, does that make it a Wilhelm Steam?
God damn it. Unfortunately, the very first environment that you get dropped into is a little bit of a mess. Spinning, rotating gears, flying in the air above you, a dragon that you can't see screaming every once in a while, and these portals that, some of them are okay to step through in your judgment, and other ones are no-no portals, I guess? I don't know. Character models look a little bit dated, which mostly shows through when it comes to the facial animation department. Armor and clothing look stylish enough. The flat caps and waistcoats of the 1900s are complemented by crazy armor suits, steampipes, mecha hands, and shiny copper plates. Sometimes a little too shiny. The Fey monsters and fantastic creatures really got the best end of the deal here. Check out this horrifying take on the Green Fairy. And the boss creatures are incredibly unique creations. Whether you're facing down an overfed gremlin or an abhorrent spellcaster, the artists absolutely nailed these designs. However, there seems to be a total lack of attention to the realm of graphic design. Take a look at any newspaper or signpost, and you'll see default fonts placed kind of in a default state in the center of a oversized text box. This incomplete feeling carries over to the UI as well. It really drives home the game's early access status.
Sound effects are sufficiently meaty and impactful, but the real standout has to be the background music. A curious mix of epic adventure themes, ragtime jazz, and carnival tunes can be found sprinkled liberally throughout the streets of Tattertown. When it comes to sound options, these are severely lacking. Levels can't be adjusted independently at all, and environmental music can overlap with the soundtrack, so some sandpapering is sorely needed here too.
There's a ton of voice acting, though. And sure, the voiceover can be a bit hit or miss. Minor characters range from scenery chewing to silly and entertaining, like this chunky gremlin doing a Jack Nicholson impression.
Who gives a womp rat's tail who's in charge, as long as everything keeps ticking along smoothly,
The occasional sloppy retake pokes its head up from time to time.
Catch my drift? What I need is to get my Newman back into the railway business. What I need is to get my Newman back into the railroad business.
There are also a few painfully cringy sequences to sit through.
And Violet's my heart's desire, her love and power shall all conspire.
Violet, fair Violet,
I know her well. Her heart is in science, not some spell.
But for the most part, the voice work is serviceable throughout the experience. During your journey, a Baldur's Gate-style narrator pops in to describe the scene with his dulcet tones.
Your heart quickens with anticipation as you take that first decisive step off the gangway. The new world awaits.
Your companion Mick Mortensen delivers an earnest performance, and many of the underworld figures are portrayed in a particularly grimy light. But the fabulous theatrical director Richard Maxwell Gracefield Parisi III is an absolute delight to listen to.
Why are you still standing here? Why aren't you racing around solving my problems and carrying out my orders?
We just stan Richard Maxwell Gracefield Parisi III. Being the director's assistant is not a glorious career, and your role hits a bump on the tracks when you're suddenly stuck with prompting a play for a bunch of unpracticed actors. Depending on whether you decide to deliver the play as written, or swap the actors' lines for technologist propaganda, you'll push the balance in the realm further towards magic or tech. These decisions make tech characters a little stronger while magicians get a little weaker, or vice versa. Herein lies the game's central conflict.
The New World is a complex and multifaceted land that stands at the cusp of a grand industrial revolution. This change includes plenty of societal growing pains. Factory workers are incensed by the loss of their jobs due to automation, a valid concern that rings true in our modern day, to be sure. Automatons are starting to see use in realms other than factory settings, and the game even questions their own sentience at certain points. Dickensian story beats poke through much of the plot as well, such as a side story involving orphans being sold into factory labor. Many of the quest decisions you'll be making seem like lateral moves within morally gray areas at times, and I'm totally here for that.
Even so, New Arc Line makes sure to include a bit of playfulness in this grim world. A watermelon salesman encourages you to spank his melons and then accuses you of perversion when you take him up on the offer. An elf offers to paint your portrait and provides a cubist rendition of your character. A woman gets magically transformed into a bottle of gin, but seems surprisingly cool with it. A really buff chicken asks you to help him win a boxing match. A matchmaker side quest climaxes with a shy dwarf singing his heart out to the massive muscle mommy of his dreams.
Aww. Teammates have their own ambitions as well and build rapport with you based on your actions and responses. Do you chastise Mick for snorting up a fat line of fairy powder, or do you join in with him? When your trigger-happy companion is involved in a random shooting, do you turn her in? What if she was magically hypnotized at the time of the crime with a Winter Soldier sequence of words?
Возвращение на родину. 1. Грузовой вагон.
Seems weird, but
Sure, whatever.
that's part of the game.
Despite these interesting concepts, the writing has a lot of rough edges that could use another turn or two on the old literary lathe. Some of the text is full of typos and grammatical errors, and characters occasionally slip into modern turns of phrase.
A douchebag who's never even had a manicure! Can you believe it?
Charming voice actors and colorful characters can't save a sloppy script, and when NPCs begin to sling around F-bombs and call each other douchebags, it can feel a little bit jarring. I get that this is a fantasy game, a genre that requires a heavy suspension of disbelief, but wouldn't it be better to toss in some witty 19th century insults?
Flippin' hell.
Whatever the outcome of the play might be, you'll get a little appearance from director Wayne Zindo, a syndicate boss and robot technologist extraordinaire who has a name like a character from Yakuza.
I think it sounds like a Star Wars dude, like a side character, like Wayne Zindo is a meme jizz player, you know?
In addition to being the brains behind the production of shiny new automatons, he's the head honcho when it comes to the New Arc line, and the railroad runs under his discretion, so it'll be up to you to get in front of this guy and get your hands on a ticket to ride.
For the time being, though, you're smuggled aboard a little boat and taken to the harbor slums, where the underworld string puller, Red Simon, awaits your arrival.
That's our style, mate. Straight off the boat and right down to business.
Simon will soon have you running around the slums doing various dirty jobs, fixing elections, threatening bureaucrats, and so on. all in the name of getting your precious little briefcase onto the next train of the new Arc line. Over the course of these misadventures, you'll uncover sleazy speakeasies, magical monstrosities, and chilling conspiracies. But just to make sure all of this is worthwhile, Simon checks out the goods.
We happy?
But we aren't entirely happy. A few core problems need to be addressed before this train leaves the station. The tutorial absolutely overstays its welcome. There's a ton of messy exposition dumping during the intro sequence, and the rough feeling of all the carnival sidetrack activities causes this section to quickly lose steam. It takes over an hour to push through this as a first-time player, and this section can feel directionless if you don't pay enough close attention to the main quest markers.
The decision to centralize the game around a D100 system is also not very fulfilling for the player. Choices in an RPG need to feel good instead of arbitrary, and a D100 system requires characters to be highly specialized in order to succeed at their particular niches. This means that it falls to the game designers to carefully balance every challenge and anticipate a huge variety of potential character builds. During this short romp through the portside town, it definitely felt like there was too much variance in the dice rolls and a lack of consistency in feedback for your actions. And some additional revisions and rebalances are definitely in order for the core system of the game.
Which sounds like a pretty harsh judgment.
Sorry.
But, I mean, you're not wrong. I can't argue with that. I just tend to see the promise in things like this. Is New Arc Line worth picking up in its current state? Well, let's see. There's about 10 hours of gameplay for the asking price of $20. For this price, we get the first chapter in what promises to be an epic experience, and it's still missing quite a few features and options at that. Based on the planned features, character classes, and expanded dialogue that the store page brags, this seems like a title that's lining up for a lengthy early access run before it's finally considered to be feature complete.
It's hard to deny the unwoven filament of Arcanum nostalgia that you'll find threaded throughout the streets of New Arc Line. The prospect of a new Steampunk and Sorcery game is long overdue, and if this game has the chance to deliver on its promise, it may just shape up into something really special. But if you want a better bang for your gaming buck, you might want to wishlist this one for the time being and keep an eye on it until it gains a little more steam.
Anyway, thanks for stomping along with us through the Steampipes of early access today, and an extra hearty hello goes out to all our supporters from the Heroes Tavern over on Patreon and Ko-Fi. If you'd like to get involved with keeping our engines running, consider paying the bouncer at the tavern door and belly up to this cozy little table. For 2 trade tickets per month, our brothers and sisters in arms gain early access to videos, frequent updates, exclusive content, and special Discord roles.
A hearty cheer goes out to the brave knights at the seat of honor level, Wolfgang Bristol and John Mark Collado.
And we raise our voices in song to everyone seated around the heroes table, including Adam Uselman,
Jaduzable,
KK,
Wolpes,
Yaroslav Rybaki, and the rest. Your donations truly make a difference, but if you find your wallet a little bare this month, you can still help us out by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing our stuff with your fellow RPG enthusiasts. Are there any other games out there that try to combine mechanics and mysticism? Let us know down in the comments below.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next Two-Headed Hero.
Off you go. Best of luck, and keep a sharp eye out for trouble.